Captain Daniel Hayes stood at the viewport of the UES Defiant, watching the stars. It was 2157, and humanity had survived first contact with the Draconis Imperium 5 years ago. Not without cost, though. He touched the scar that ran from his temple to his jaw, a reminder of that brutal first encounter. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange near Neptune's orbit," said Olivia Grant, the communications specialist. Her fingers danced across her console as she isolated the signal. Daniel moved quickly to her station. "What kind of something?" "I don't know, sir. It's not like anything in our database." Science Officer William Jones joined them, his face illuminated by the blue glow of his screen. "Energy signatures are off the charts, Captain. Nothing we've seen before, not even Draconis tech." The bridge fell silent. Everyone remembered what happened last time humanity encountered something new. "Battle stations," Daniel ordered, his voice calm despite the anxiety building in his chest. "Alert Luna Command." Red lights flashed as crew members rushed to their positions. The Defiant was a patrol vessel, not meant for major confrontations, but it was fast and well armed, the perfect first line of defense. "Sir, look." Lieutenant Kyle Fisher pointed at the main screen. Where empty space had been moments before, a fleet of ships now appeared. They emerged from what looked like tears in the fabric of space, not the usual hyperspace signatures humanity had grown accustomed to. These ships were organic in design, with curves and tendrils that reminded Daniel of deep-sea creatures from Earth's oceans. "How many?" Daniel asked, gripping the edge of his chair. 27 large vessels, unknown number of smaller craft, replied William, his voice strained. "They're deploying in attack formation." "Open a channel," Daniel ordered. "All frequencies, all languages we know." Olivia nodded, her fingers flying across her console. "Channel opens, sir." Daniel stood tall. "This is Captain Daniel Hayes of the United Earth ship Defiant. You have entered Earth-controlled space. We welcome peaceful contact. Please identify yourselves." For several tense minutes, there was nothing but silence. Then a response came through, a series of clicks, whistles, and deep rumbles that made no sense to human ears. "Computer can't translate," Olivia said. "I'm trying to establish a basic communication protocol." Before she could finish, one of the alien ships fired. A beam of pulsing green energy shot past the Defiant, missing by mere kilometers. "I think they're sending a different kind of message, sir," William said grimly. "Evasive maneuvers. Get us out of their firing range and maintain transmission." "Keep trying to communicate," Daniel ordered. The Defiant lurched as it changed course. 3 more beams fired, each coming closer than the last. Finally, a voice came through their communication system, stilted and mechanical, but in recognizable English. "Humans, we are the Kresh Collective. We have studied your species. You are unpredictable, dangerous, unfit for the galactic community." Daniel leaned forward. "We mean no harm. We seek only peaceful." "Peace is not possible with evolutionary anomalies." The voice interrupted. "Your kind develops without pattern. You do not follow logical progression. This cannot be permitted." The main screen suddenly showed images of Titan and Europa, Earth's outer colonies. Explosions bloomed across their surfaces as more Kresh ships appeared near them. "This is our judgment," the Kresh representative continued. "Your extinction begins now. Get me Luna Command," Daniel shouted, "and calculate fastest route back to Earth. We need to warn them." As the Defiant turned and accelerated to maximum speed, Daniel watched the view screen. The Kresh fleet was growing, ship after ship emerging from the spatial tiers. Humanity had survived first contact once before. Now they faced another test, one that might prove even more deadly than the last. Admiral Sofia Martinez pounded her fist on the conference table in the Luna Command Center. The emergency summit had been going for 6 hours now, and tempers were flaring. "The Kresh have already destroyed our outposts on Titan and Europa. Over 5,000 dead," she said, her voice tight with anger. "We need to act now." The holographic display in the center of the room showed the advancing Kresh fleet. More ships continued to appear through the strange spatial tiers near Neptune. "What do we know about them?" asked General Peter Daniels, his weathered face grim in the blue light of the hologram. Lieutenant Alex Carter stepped forward. The young intelligence officer had been analyzing data nonstop since the attack began. "Sir, I've discovered something important in our archives," Alex said. "Our early radio transmissions from the 20th and 21st centuries, the ones that spread into space, they weren't just heard by the Draconis. The Kresh were listening to." "And?" prompted the Admiral. "They misinterpreted everything. Our fiction, our wars, our rapid technological development. The Kresh see us as unpredictable, dangerous. They believe species should evolve along certain patterns. We don't fit their model." The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. "So they want to exterminate us because we're different?" someone finally asked. "Essentially, yes," Alex confirmed. The doors to the conference room slid open. Everyone turned to see Captain Daniel Hayes enter, accompanied by 3 tall, reptilian figures. The Draconis representatives had arrived. 5 years ago, these beings had been humanity's enemies. Now, they might be their only hope. The lead Draconis, Ambassador Ishtak, bowed slightly. "We come offering alliance," he said, his voice a low hiss. "The Kresh are known to us. They have eliminated 17 species before yours. Why would you help us?" Admiral Martinez asked suspiciously. "We were at war not long ago." The ambassador's vertical pupils narrowed. "The Kresh consider us predictable enough to exist. For now, if they succeed in eliminating humans, we believe we will be next. Self-interest, Admiral. The simplest reason for alliance." Tactical Officer Nathan Wilson had been quiet until now. He stood up, his eyes bright with an idea. "If the Kresh expect patterns and predictability, then our best weapon is chaos," he said. "We need to be as unpredictable as possible." Engineer Lisa Brown nodded enthusiastically. "I might have a way to integrate our technologies with Draconis systems. It won't be pretty, but it could work." The Draconis ambassador tilted his head. "Our weapons are superior. Your tactics are unexpected. Together, we might stand a chance." Admiral Martinez looked around the room. Humans and Draconis, former enemies, now potential allies against extinction. "How many ships can your people provide?" she asked the ambassador. 17 battle cruisers are already en route to your Mars perimeter," Sistak replied. "More will follow." "Not enough," muttered General Daniels. "Not nearly enough." "We don't need to match their numbers," Nathan said confidently. "We just need to confuse them. Their entire strategy is based on the assumption that species behave predictably. We'll show them how wrong they are about humanity." Alex stepped forward again. "There's more. The Kresh aren't just attacking us. They're making an example of us. Other species are watching to see what happens." Daniel Hayes nodded grimly. "Then we need to make sure they see us stand our ground." Admiral Martinez straightened her uniform and made her decision. "Begin integrating our forces with the Draconis immediately. Nathan, I want your unpredictable tactics ready within 48 hours. Lisa, get your engineering teams working on those technology integrations." She looked out the viewport at Earth, blue and vulnerable in the distance. "This is no longer just about survival," she said quietly. "This is our chance to show the galaxy who we really are." The joint human-Draconis fleet launched from the Mars shipyards, a strange sight against the red planet. Human ships were boxy and practical, while Draconis vessels curved like metallic serpents. Together, they made an odd but formidable force. Captain Daniel Hayes commanded from the bridge of the UES Defiant, now upgraded with Draconis technology. The ship hummed with unfamiliar power. "All ships report ready, Captain," said Olivia Grant, her voice tense but steady. Daniel nodded. "Begin Operation Chaos." The fleet split into 5 groups, each taking a different approach towards Saturn, where the Kresh had established their forward base. Instead of the standard formation the Kresh might expect, the human Draconish ships scattered in seemingly random patterns. "They're responding," William Jones reported, watching his scanner. "Kresh vessels are reorganizing to intercept." The superior numbers of the Kresh quickly pushed back the Alliance forces. 3 human ships were destroyed in the first exchange, their crews lost in silent explosions. "We're being overwhelmed in Sector 4, came a panicked transmission. It was then that pilot Grace Rodriguez made her move. Her squadron of smaller fighters appeared from behind Saturn's rings, flying in patterns that defied conventional space combat tactics. "What are they doing?" hissed Ambassador Stak, who stood on the Defiance bridge as liaison. "Being unpredictable," Daniel replied with a small smile. Grace's voice came over the comm. "Executing spiral maneuver now." Her fighters spun around the larger Kresh vessels, firing at seemingly random intervals and locations. The Kresh ships struggled to track them, their targeting systems designed for more logical attack patterns. "It's working," William exclaimed. "Their hit ratio is dropping." Meanwhile, on Titan, Commander Ryan Phillips led a ground team to recapture the human base. They moved in patterns developed by Nathan Wilson, never in straight lines, never using the same tactic twice. "The Kresh expect us to attack the main entrance, or the power core," Ryan told his team as they prepared to breach the base. "So we're going through the waste disposal system." It was dirty work, but the surprise was complete. The Kresh guards, tall beings with 4 arms and iridescent skin, had positioned their forces to defend against conventional assaults. They never expected humans to wade through sewage to attack. Back in space, the battle raged on. The Alliance was still outnumbered, but the confusion tactics were working. The Kresh struggled to predict where the next attack would come from. On the science vessel UES Discovery, Emma Wright had been studying captured Kresh technology. She looked up from her work, eyes wide. "I've got it," she exclaimed to her team. "Their communication systems, they're based on mathematical sequences. They literally can't process randomness." She quickly sent her findings to the fleet. Daniel received the information and immediately understood its importance. "All ships implement random communication protocols," he ordered. "Change frequencies every 30 seconds. No pattern." The Kresh ships began to show signs of confusion. Their coordinated movements became hesitant. "They communicate through predictable patterns," Daniel realized, "and we're disrupting them by being unpredictable." A large Kresh vessel exploded as Grace's fighters hit a vulnerable spot. For the first time, the Alliance had scored a major victory. Ambassador Sistak's scales rippled with what might have been respect. "Perhaps your unpredictability is not a flaw after all." As the battle turned in their favor, Daniel knew this was just the beginning. The Kresh still had vast resources, and humanity was fighting for its very existence. But they had found a weakness, the Kresh fundamental misunderstanding of human nature. The very unpredictability that the Kresh feared was becoming humanity's greatest weapon. "Send word to Earth," Daniel ordered. "Tell them we now know how to fight back." Intelligence Officer Kevin Stewart crawled through the narrow maintenance shaft of the captured Kresh communication hub on Titan. His heart pounded in his chest as he carefully avoided the security sensors. This mission was vital. They needed to understand how the Kresh communicated with the rest of the galaxy. "I'm in," he whispered into his comm. "Beginning download now." He attached a small device to the alien computer terminal. Designed by Emma Wright based on her discoveries, it bypassed the Kresh security by introducing random fluctuations that the orderly Kresh systems couldn't detect. Back at the temporary human base on Titan's dark side, linguist Samantha Lee waited anxiously. When Kevin's data began streaming in, she immediately started working to decipher it. "This is incredible," she breathed after several hours. "It's not just Kresh communications. This is a hub for the entire galactic network." Captain Daniel Hayes leaned over her shoulder. "What does that mean for us?" Samantha's fingers flew across her screen. It means we're being watched, Daniel, not just by the Kresh, but by dozens of species. The whole galaxy knows we're fighting for our lives. Can we use this? Daniel asked. Samantha nodded slowly. We can broadcast on these channels. We can tell our side of the story to everyone watching. The discovery quickly made its way up the chain of command. Within hours, Admiral Martinez had assembled a special team to analyze the implications. If we reveal that we have access to their network, we lose the element of surprise, warned General Daniels. But if we stay silent, the galaxy only hears the Kresh version of events, that were dangerous anomalies that need to be eliminated, countered Samantha. Communications specialist Victor Rodriguez, known for his eloquence, spoke up. What if we craft a message, not a plea for help, but a warning to the galaxy about what the Kresh are doing? A warning. Admiral Martinez raised an eyebrow. We're the ones being attacked. Exactly, Victor said, leaning forward intensely. The Kresh have destroyed 17 species before us. We won't be the last. Other unpredictable species are at risk. We need to warn them and show them that resistance is possible. The debate lasted hours. Some military leaders were against revealing Earth's defensive capabilities. Others worried about drawing more enemies. But ultimately, the decision was made. Victor worked day and night crafting the warning, as it came to be called. It needed to be clear, powerful, and impossible to misinterpret. We should broadcast in multiple formats, suggested Samantha. Some species perceive information differently than we do. When the message was finally ready, humanity's leaders gathered to review it. The core of it was simple. Humanity would not be categorized. Humanity would not be exterminated, and any species that sided with the Kresh would face the full unpredictability of human resistance. Is this too aggressive? Asked a civilian advisor. We could be making more enemies, or finding allies who fear the Kresh as much as we do, countered Victor. Either way, staying silent isn't an option. Daniel Hayes, having returned from the front lines for this moment, stood at the back of the room. The Kresh want to wipe us out because we don't fit their model of how species should evolve. I say we embrace that. Let the galaxy see what unpredictability really means. Admiral Martinez nodded. Proceed with the broadcast. Kevin Stewart, back on the Kresh hub, received the final message. With a deep breath, he activated the transmission sequence that would send humanity's warning to every corner of the galaxy. Broadcast complete, he reported minutes later. The whole galaxy just heard us. Now all they could do was wait for the response and prepare for the Kresh reaction, which would surely be swift and brutal. Samantha's console suddenly lit up with incoming signals. Someone's answering, she said in amazement. Actually, many someones. The message had been sent. The galaxy was listening. Humanity had made its stand. The Galactic Council chamber had not been designed with humans in mind. Major Eric Gonzalez felt small as he stood before the massive holographic projections of alien representatives. Some appeared as strange energy patterns, others as tentacled creatures, and some in forms that human minds struggle to comprehend. The human message has been received, announced the council elder, a being of swirling light. This is unprecedented. No species facing Kresh extinction has ever broadcast to the galaxy at large. Eric squared his shoulders. After humanity's warning had spread across galactic communication channels, this emergency meeting had been called. As Earth's hastily appointed diplomatic representative, he felt the weight of his entire species on his shoulders. We speak not just for ourselves, Eric said clearly, but for all species who value diversity and evolution. The Kresh doctrine of predictable development is not just wrong, it's dangerous to all life. A murmur spread through the council. Some representatives seemed angry, others curious. A few remained completely unreadable to human perceptions. You claim the Kresh have eliminated 17 other species, said a reptilian being much larger than the Draconis. This accusation requires evidence. "We have transmitted all data recovered from the Kresh communication hub," Eric replied. "Our findings have been confirmed by our Draconis allies." The mention of the Draconis caused another stir among the council members. The alliance between humans and Draconis was clearly unexpected. A new figure joined the council chamber, a tall, willowy being with skin like flowing water. "I am Ilori, representative of the Altheri Confederation. We have verified the human claims. The Kresh have indeed been systematically eliminating what they term unpredictable species for over 3,000 years. The council chamber erupted in chaotic discussion. Eric stood silently, watching different factions form before his eyes. Back on Earth, Samantha Lee was working around the clock to translate the flood of incoming communications from previously unknown species. Some offered support, others demanded more information, and a few issued threats of their own. "I think we've stirred up a hornet's nest," she told Admiral Martinez as new messages continued to arrive. "The question is whether these hornets will sting us or the Kresh," the Admiral replied. The answer began to take shape when 3 Altheri ships arrived at Earth's moon, offering advanced technology and alliance. Soon after, representatives from the Vox Collective, beings of living crystal, arrived with similar offers. A coalition of unpredictable species was beginning to form, drawn together by humanity's defiant broadcast. Species that had been hiding from the Kresh for generations now saw a chance to stand together. But the Kresh did not wait idly. Their response to humanity's galactic message was swift and terrible. Massive hyperspace signatures detected. William Jones shouted on the bridge of the UES Defiant, which had been patrolling near Jupiter. "It's the largest Kresh fleet yet." Captain Daniel Hayes watched in horror as hundreds of Kresh vessels emerged from spatial tiers. This was no longer just a punitive force. This was an armada meant for complete annihilation. "All ships, battle formations," he ordered, knowing they were hopelessly outnumbered. "We need to buy Earth time to coordinate with our new allies." The battle for Jupiter's orbit began. Human and Draconis ships fought with desperate courage, using every unpredictable tactic they had developed. But the Kresh numbers were overwhelming. One by one, Alliance ships were destroyed. The UES, defiant, heavily damaged, continued to fight as the last major vessel still operational. "We can't hold them," Olivia Grant said, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead as the ship shuddered from another hit. Daniel nodded grimly. "Send our battle data to Earth. They need to know what they're facing." As the Kresh fleet pushed past Jupiter's orbit and headed toward Earth, the UES Defiant made its last stand, a single ship against an overwhelming force. Its destruction was witnessed by the galaxy and became a symbol that would rally more species to humanity's cause. The battle for Earth was about to begin. Engineer Andrew Miller hadn't slept in 3 days. His lab on Earth's moon was cluttered with parts from human, Draconis, and Altheri technology. Dark circles shadowed his eyes as he made the final adjustments to his creation. "This might actually work," he muttered, connecting the last circuit. The quantum entanglement defense grid was unlike anything humans had built before. It didn't just shield ships. It connected them at the quantum level, allowing for instant communication and coordination regardless of distance. "Try it now," he called to his team. Lights flickered, then stabilized. A holographic display showed dozens of small points suddenly linking together across the solar system. "It's working," exclaimed his assistant. "All ships are connected to the grid." Meanwhile, in a secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, scientist Nicole Foster was putting the finishing touches on her own project. "Run the simulation again," she ordered her team. On the massive screen, virtual ships executed complex maneuvers that seemed completely random, but were actually following a hidden pattern, one that only became apparent when viewed through the lens of chaos theory. "The adaptive tactical eye is ready," she announced. "It's designed to be unpredictable even to us, while maintaining strategic coherence." Admiral Martinez received both reports with cautious hope. "Implement the chaos protocol immediately," she ordered. "Connect every ship, weapon, and defense station to both systems." The preparation continued at a frantic pace as the Kresh fleet approached. Earth's civilian populations weren't idle either. In an unprecedented move, the military had shared their tactical situation with the public, asking for ideas. Millions responded. Farmers suggested unpredictable crop patterns to hide ground installations. Children designed random sequences that confused Kresh targeting systems. Retired engineers came up with jury-rigged weapons that worked in ways the Kresh couldn't anticipate. "I've never seen anything like it," Ambassador Stack said, observing the human preparation. "Your people think differently." "That's what the Kresh hate about us," replied Admiral Martinez. "And it's why we'll win." On Mars, now serving as a testing ground for hybrid technologies, human and alien engineers worked side by side. They created weapons that combined principles from different worlds, unpredictable by design. The Altheri representative watched a test firing with wide, reflective eyes. "Your species adapts so quickly," she said. "In days, you've integrated technology that took us centuries to develop." As the Kresh fleet entered Mars orbit, the first test of the new defenses came. The battle began conventionally, with the Kresh deploying in their standard formations. Then Andrew's quantum grid activated. Alliance ships suddenly moved in perfect coordination despite appearing completely random. Nicole's adaptive AI began directing defense systems, anticipating Kresh responses before they happened. Confusion spread through the Kresh fleet. Their highly ordered battle plans fell apart against opponents who refused to follow expected patterns. A Kresh command ship exploded when a small Earth vessel performed a maneuver that Kresh tactical doctrine had deemed physically impossible. More followed as the Alliance forces embraced strategies that defied conventional wisdom. "They're retreating from Mars orbit," came the excited report. But the celebration was short-lived. The Kresh were regrouping, adapting their own strategies. The battle had only just begun. "They're learning," Nicole warned, watching the data stream in. "They're trying to find patterns in our chaos." Andrew nodded grimly. "Then we need to become even more unpredictable." As the Kresh armada regrouped and headed for Earth, humanity prepared for the final confrontation. The coalition of allied species was growing, but would it be enough? Would the defenses hold? The battle for Earth's solar system was about to reach its climax, and the fate of not just humanity, but all unpredictable species hung in the balance. The sky above Earth burned with the light of battle. Thousands of ships, human, Draconis, Altheri, and dozens of other allied species faced the largest Kresh fleet ever assembled. The final confrontation had arrived. On the bridge of the newly commissioned UES Invincible, Captain Daniel Hayes watched the enemy approach. The ship had been built in record time, incorporating technology from 7 different species. "Kresh Supreme Commander's vessel identified," reported William Jones, his voice tense. "It's 3 times the size of anything we've encountered before." Daniel nodded grimly. "They're bringing everything they have. So are we." The coalition forces had positioned themselves in what appeared to be a standard defensive formation. But appearances were deceiving. Each ship was ready to execute its part in the Chaos Protocol. "All ships, stand by for Phase 1, Daniel ordered. "Remember, unpredictability is our strength." The Kresh fleet opened fire first, a devastating barrage that lit up space. Their weapons had improved, adapted to counter some of the Alliance's earlier tactics. "Now," Daniel commanded. The seemingly orderly coalition formation dissolved instantly. Ships moved in patterns that defied conventional space combat logic, some accelerating toward the enemy, others performing impossible turns, all coordinated through Andrew Miller's quantum grid. "The Kresh algorithms can't track us," Olivia Grant said, monitoring enemy communications. "They're firing at where they predict we'll be, but we're never there." Nicole Foster's adaptive AI directed each ship individually, ensuring that no pattern emerged that the Kresh could learn from. The result was beautiful chaos, a dance of ships that appeared random but was devastatingly effective. The first wave of Kresh vessels fell to the Alliance's coordinated attack, but more kept coming. "They're adapting again," William mourned. "Their supreme commander is implementing new strategies." Daniel nodded. "Time for the broadcast. All channels, all frequencies." He stood tall and spoke clearly, knowing his words would reach not just the Kresh, but every observing species in the galaxy. "This is Captain Daniel Hayes of Earth. To the Kresh Collective and all who witness, this is humanity's last warning. We will not be categorized. We will not be exterminated. We stand for the right of all species to evolve as they will, not as others demand. This is our stand, not just for humanity, but for life itself." As he spoke, the coalition ships executed a maneuver that should have been impossible. Thousands of vessels moving in concert to create a pattern visible only when viewed from a specific angle, a symbol recognized throughout the galaxy as meaning freedom. The Kresh Supreme Commander's response was immediate and furious. The massive flagship surged forward, leading a concentrated attack. "All ships, execute final phase," Daniel ordered. What followed was the most complex coordinated military action in human history. Each Alliance ship performed a unique set of movements and attacks, creating a symphony of chaos that overwhelmed the Kresh tactical systems. Their orderly minds couldn't comprehend the seemingly random but perfectly synchronized assault. The Kresh formation broke. Ship after ship fell to the Alliance's unpredictable attacks. The Supreme Commander's vessel, surrounded and unable to predict where the next strike would come from, was crippled by a small human ship that approached along a trajectory the Kresh had calculated as illogical and therefore left undefended. Throughout the galaxy, species watched as the supposedly unstoppable Kresh fleet was defeated by the very unpredictability they had sought to eliminate. 3 days later, representatives from across the galaxy gathered to sign the Unpredictable Species Accord. Earth became the headquarters for this new alliance, a sanctuary for species that refused to be categorized. Admiral Martinez stood with representatives from 24 species as they formalized the agreement. "Today marks a new chapter in galactic history," she said, "one where diversity in evolution is protected, not persecuted." Daniel Hayes, watching from the back of the room, thought about all those who had been lost in the struggle. Their sacrifice had not just saved humanity. It had changed the galaxy forever. The Kresh doctrine of predictable evolution was broken. Humanity had made its stand, and in doing so, had found its place among the stars. 5 years had passed since the great battle for Earth. The scars of war were still visible: orbital debris fields, the rebuilt lunar base, and the memorial gardens that bloomed in cities worldwide. But something new had also emerged, a galactic community unlike any that had existed before. Daniel Hayes, now Admiral Hayes, stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, the massive space installation orbiting Earth. Below him, ships from dozens of species arrived and departed. Some looked like polished metal insects, others like translucent jellyfish drifting through the void. Each design reflected a unique evolutionary path, a different way of thinking. "Admiral, they're ready for you," said Olivia Grant, now his chief of staff. Daniel nodded and straightened his uniform. Today marked the 5th anniversary of the Unpredictable Species Accord, and representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to celebrate. The Grand Assembly Hall was filled with beings of all shapes, sizes, and compositions. Some breathed methane, others absorbed radiation. A few existed partially in dimensions humans couldn't perceive, yet all had found common ground in their diversity. Daniel took his place at the podium, looking out at this extraordinary gathering. 5 years ago, we faced extinction because we didn't fit someone else's model of how life should evolve, he began. Today, we celebrate not just our survival, but the birth of a new understanding. That unpredictability is not a flaw to be eliminated, but a strength to be embraced. Across the room, Ambassador Stack of the Draconis nodded. The former enemies had become Earth's closest allies, their complementary thinking styles proving remarkably effective in solving complex problems. The Kresh believed that orderly evolution was the only path to advancement, Daniel continued. But look at what we've accomplished by bringing different perspectives together. The achievements were impressive. The combined scientific knowledge of the coalition species had advanced medicine, technology, and exploration at an unprecedented rate. Problems that had stumped individual species for centuries were being solved through collaborative approaches. In a corner of the assembly hall sat a small delegation of Kresh. After their defeat, a faction had broken away from their collective, questioning the doctrine that had guided their society for millennia. These new thinkers, as they called themselves, were cautiously engaging with the coalition. Even our former enemies are learning the value of unpredictability, Daniel said, acknowledging the Kresh delegation with a respectful nod. After the ceremony, Daniel walked through the station's botanical garden, designed to accommodate plants from 100 worlds. He found William Jones there, studying an alien flower that changed color in response to thought patterns. "Beautiful, isn't it?" William said, looking up at his former captain. "Life finding new ways to express itself." "That's what the Kresh never understood," Daniel replied. "Evolution isn't about reaching a predetermined endpoint. It's about exploring possibilities." Later that evening, as celebrations continued across the station, Daniel retreated to a quiet viewing lounge. Earth hung below, blue and peaceful. He thought about how close they had come to losing everything. A tall crystalline being approached, one of the Vox collective, their body refracting light in complex patterns. "Your thoughts seem heavy, Admiral Hayes," the being said, its voice a melodious hum. "I was just thinking about where we go from here," Daniel replied. "The galaxy is still full of dangers." "Indeed," agreed the crystalline being. "But now we face them together, each contributing our unique perspective. The Kresh sought to make the galaxy orderly by eliminating differences. We have proven that embracing those differences makes us stronger." As Daniel looked out at the stars, he knew the Vox was right. Humanity's stand hadn't just saved their species, it had changed the fundamental direction of galactic civilization. The future would be unpredictable, but that was exactly as it should be. Out beyond the edges of explored space, new species were evolving, each following their own unique path. And thanks to humanity's last warning, they would find a galaxy ready to welcome their differences, not fear them.